The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Saturday, 18th of April.
The FujiCast.
Welcome to the FujiCast Daily, the daily photography podcast, which usually sees me presenting with Kev Mullins, of course. Weekends have sometimes been slightly different. Kev's back tomorrow, though today we have a guest talking about sports photography and how he went from zero intention to become professional to now shooting some of the biggest football clubs, matches and competitions in his spare time. A standing start from non-league to rubbing shoulders with the game's elite in a matter of a couple of years. Now, Martyn Haworth is our guest today. You'll hear him shortly. The weekend is here, though, for many of us in photography. Monday is the new Saturday, is the new Wednesday, is the new Friday, is the new Tuesday. It's all melding somewhat, I think. Anyway, it's a very different weekend to last week. The sunshine seems to have been replaced with the rain. I'm not sure if you can hear it. But it's, no, you probably can't, but it's lashing at the windows this Saturday morning. It's like even the weather is giving us a stay-at-home reminder today. Thank you for the questions you've been sending in. Thank you for the suggestions of interviewees. There's a long list of folk to talk to set some interviews with and then actually do them. So thank you very much for those. We will get round to them, of course, if they say yes. In particular, thank you for some of the more off-the-wall photographic questions too, as they've certainly kept us on our feet. Some of the questions have been about whether or not the daily will continue in any way, shape or form after our individual lockdowns or stay-at-home orders start to relax. I know it's been a form of friendship for some, an extended community in that time as well. The Facebook group has grown. The thousands of comments and engagement across a week have been really heartening to witness. We always said we wanted a safe place for photographers of all interests and standards to hang out, and I guess this podcast is one, but the Facebook group is certainly another. Somewhere where the language and respect for each other was somehow different to other groups that we'd witnessed. Let's just leave it at that. And though occasionally it goes a little awry with the odd posting that raises one of our moderators' eyebrows, on the whole, it has become a sanctuary. No matter what you shoot, which kit you use, whatever brand you're interested in, or whether you're professional or simply somebody who likes to make pictures for the sake of making pictures when you can. So you're very welcome to join us. It's where you can engage also, of course, with the daily challenges. So will the dailies continue? Probably not without some form of commercialism, no. Because at some stage, Kev and I, we need to be out there again, making pictures to fund our families once again. But we've learned a lot from this period. We've had a fair few chats about the future of the cast and the community. So there is a little thought around an extension of the regular show, something additional. You've asked about events, and we've been thinking about that too. Suffice to say, it probably wouldn't be fair to say too much without firm plans in place, and of course without Kev being here to talk to as well. So this is a watch this space hint of things to come. So, to today's hangout, Martyn Haworth recently left the army after 16 years service, rejoining Civvy Street to work within the railway industry. We've been asked about sports photography of late, more specifically how difficult it is to enter one of the most competitive arenas, football, or if you will, soccer photography. So it seemed a good idea to connect with a photographer I know who's at the start of the journey, rather than 5, 10 or 15 years established. And there is a kind of a left turn at the traffic lights in this particular hangout, which has got something to do with Captain Tom. Anyway, let's start with Martyn Haworth. Did you learn your photography skills, by the way, in the army?
I'd always liked photography. I remember getting into it, or first getting an interest in it when I was about 10 years old, but I didn't actually do anything with that interest for about another 20 years. And then I went to Uganda on a short trip with the army, and then I was going back there. And when I went on the first trip, one of the guys I was with had bought himself a Fuji X-T1.
Oh, right.
And we spent about a week out there. I was just watching him with this camera thinking, I really wish I had that camera. I've been thinking about getting one for a while. Mm-hmm. And because I knew we were going back, I came back, bought myself a Fuji X-T1, and my plan was to go back to Africa and just spend a couple of weeks when I had some downtime shooting the locals. However, at the time I was doing a lot of running. I was big into my half marathons at the time. I think I'd done about 12 up to that point that year.
One's enough, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, but I mean, I was really into it. I think I've got a bit of a binge personality, and when I get into one thing, I really get into it.
Well, there are worse things to binge on, probably.
Yeah. So I was doing loads of running. I just bought this camera. I was just about to go back to Uganda. and I was playing a charity football match down at Welling United. It was actually for Carlisle flood charity. Carlisle's obviously flooded 2 times, I think, in 10 years.
And Carlisle's your team, isn't it? So that makes sense.
So originally from Carlisle, big Carlisle United fan. And we played down in Welling in the FA Cup the weekend that Carlisle flooded for the second time.
Oh, my word.
So we managed to get a charity game set up between the Carlisle United London branch supporters club and the England supporters club, their football team. It was played at Welling. Playing in that game, was actually playing up front with Jimmy Glass, the goalkeeper who scored to keep Carlisle in the Football League back in 99.
God, yeah, a legend.
The absolute legend, yeah. So I was playing up front with him at the time, down at Welling United, last 5 minutes. And I stuck my studs in the ground, turned, and my studs stayed planted, and there went my ACL.
Oh.
Yeah. Ended up getting carried off the pitch by Jimmy Glass and John Gorman, the ex-England assistant manager, and I suddenly found myself out of action for like the next year and a half. Couldn't run, couldn't go to Uganda, but I had just bought this camera. So it was a great opportunity for me to really get amongst it and start learning about photography and seriously getting into it. And as I say, I've got a bit of a binge personality. I think I went from just having a slight interest to it into it took over everything for about the next 6 months.
So actually you hadn't got any idea really prior to that moment of photographing football. It was these are circumstances that happened due to an injury, and you thought, well, what can I do? I love football, so I'll watch and photograph it instead.
Yeah, it was about a year. So I spent this time that I was injured really getting into photography, shooting pretty much everything I could, and then I started thinking I wouldn't mind shooting a bit of football. So it'd been a year. I started to research a bit of sports photography kit, started buying that, and then once I bought the kit, I was kind of committed because it's expensive stuff. So yeah, but I think a year had passed, and I got in touch with Biggleswade Town, playing the Southern Premier League Central, I think it is. I'd messaged a few clubs up to that point. I'd shot a couple of non-league games, Rushden and Diamonds, that kind of thing, clubs around me. And Biggleswade were just next on the list, really. And they said, yes, we'd love you to come down and shoot a game. In fact, we need a photographer. Do you want to come for the whole season? And it was like, I've only shot 3 games. I don't really know what I'm doing. But yeah, absolutely.
Were you essentially professional for them, or were you volunteering your services for them?
Everything at that level is volunteer. I think maybe the people who work in the bar on match day get paid. Yeah. A minimum wage for working behind the bar for a few hours.
But nobody else.
All the staff, the full-time staff, they're all voluntary.
Yeah. So really, it was like grassroots football was grassroots football photography. I mean, you start there, no money, you do it for the love, and you work up from there. Yeah,
I kind of went from shooting no football to shooting it almost, every week, pretty much.
How did that fit in with your work life? I mean, people often talk about work-life balance.
Yeah.
You sound like you didn't have any.
Well, at the time, I'd moved into a training role, so I wasn't away too much. Monday to Friday. There would be periods of the year where I'd have to go away for a couple of weeks, but I knew when they were. So I was around quite a bit, so I could commit some time with it. But it was, doing Monday to Friday and work, and then Saturday at the football, I kind of chill out a bit on the Sunday.
People talk about accreditation, don't they? There's this really important word. Are you an accredited photographer? I assume you are now. But to get to that stage, it sounds like it wasn't so much running through hoops. It was just offering yourself out to the smaller clubs and then letting it organically develop.
Yes. So how it works, so you've got Football League and Premier League accreditation. I think conference, so step 1 and 2 of non-league football, you need conference accreditation, or National League accreditation, sorry. And then below that, it's pretty much up to the clubs. So some clubs say, yes, you can come along, but you need to have your own public liability insurance, that kind of stuff.
Just so with this word accreditation, what does it actually mean? What is it, a badge or some certificate?
For me, it's just a card, a media accreditation card that I have. Yeah, and that just gets you access to the matches. Right. I don't apply for it myself, so the agency I'm attached to, they apply for it on behalf of me, for the agency. Let's
talk about kit. What's essential? What do you take?
So on a match day now, I travel with 3 cameras, all Nikon. I've got a 400mm, 2.8, 70 to 200, 24 to 70. I've also got a 14 to 24 that I use to get some nice wide-angle shots of the stadium before the game. So, 3 cameras, 4 lenses. I'll have my laptop. Got my waterproofing stuff, so that's to waterproof my cameras and my laptop.
You're waterproofing the laptop? Of course you are, yeah.
Yeah. Because
you're
working in all weathers.
Are you wiring as you go along?
Yeah, and this was the biggest thing I had to learn when I go from just shooting non-league to shooting for an agency who were, sending me out to work for clubs and newspapers and so on. I'm shooting images, but as I'm shooting them, I'm also putting them through my laptop, applying the captions, the metadata, sending it up to the agency via a VPN. So it's all on the go. So, if I'm shooting for a newspaper, for example, they'll want a constant feed of what's happening from arriving at the ground. So a nice picture of the stadium all empty, perhaps a sign that says who's playing who, so add a bit of context. So it's like building a bit of excitement on Twitter. And then it would be like the players arriving, players walking out onto the pitch, looking at the pitch, shaking hands with, ex-teammates, that kind of thing. Then pictures of the fans arriving. Players are warming up beforehand, the manager's shaking hands, then the match action, getting some pictures of the fans throughout the match, just so there's a constant feed. So, you are kind of doing that all as you go. So
there's a format, isn't there? Much like, this is going to be a bit clumsy, but much like wedding photography, where you think, right, I need to be there for that, there for that, there for that. I don't want to miss the kiss. I know that that's going to happen there. Hugging's going to... You've got a real format and a story building that you have to get every single time.
Yeah, it depends on the client. What a club will want, what a newspaper will want, they'll be a little bit different. Sometimes you just have to go and shoot the match. So it's not a specific team. So you're just getting the match action, and they probably wouldn't be too interested then in support pictures. But when you're doing it specifically for a club or a newspaper which is attached to a club, then you have to get more of like the occasion, because they're doing that for the fans who aren't there, so they want to feel like they are. But you do have a long list to follow, and when I start, I'll tend to, if it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, I'll tend to get there about midday, and once I've started, you kind of don't stop until hour and a half after the game when you've sent off your final images.
But this fascinates me, this sending images off as you're going along, because you've got to be on the ball, if you pardon the pun, because you're watching the match, shooting the match, sending images. Well, while you're sending an image, because you're very much working on your own doing this, there's stuff still going on that you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
How does that work? How do you balance that?
When the ball goes out of play, doing a lot of editing, a lot of writing captions, that kind of stuff, when the ball's up the other end. Yeah. But I've always got I'll have my 400mm on my shoulder, I'll have my 70 to 200 around my neck. So whatever I'm doing, I can just drop everything, pick up the camera and go to the action. You are obviously keeping one eye on your laptop, one eye on the game, listening to the crowd's reactions if you have got your head down. With the goals, it's really important that you get the goals and the celebrations away as quick as possible. So again, if I'm working for the client's a newspaper and this is going on their Twitter feed, they want to put on their Twitter feed, so-and-so scored for this team, and they want a picture of that person then running away celebrating.
Pretty much immediately.
It's no good if that's 10, 15 minutes later.
No.
So as soon as that goals happened, that celebrations happened, I'm straight onto the laptop. Whilst the players are probably walking back to the centre, doing a very quick edit, playing the metadata and the caption and getting it off to them, so that 2 minutes later on that Twitter feed, you'll see the goal scorer running away celebrating. You've got
to work very briskly. And editing wise, you must be one of the fastest editors I probably know. How much editing are you doing to an image? What are you doing with it? Is it raw, or are you working straight out the camera with JPEGs?
I use JPEGs. RAW would just clog up my laptop. If I shoot other stuff like non-sports, I'll shoot RAW, but JPEG for football.
Right. And do all photographers tend to work that way? It's JPEGs, get it out quickly. You've got the colour is pretty much accurate straight away coming out of camera. Is that how everybody works? I
think so, yeah. There are a couple who shoot RAW.
Why did you choose Nikon, by the way, above Canon or indeed Fuji? Because there are Fujifilm sports photographers. We've spoken to some of late.
The first couple of games I shot, I used just my Fuji X-T1 with, what was the lens again? It's the 70 to 200 equivalent.
So the 5140, yeah.
That's the one, yeah. So the first couple of games I shot using that, but it wasn't ideal for sport. I think it's 6 frames a second or something. So just when I was getting used to it, the first few games I was using Fuji. The reason why I went with Nikon was, at the time I was in the army, And
It's an army camera, yes.
I was I'd just done a selection course from an army photographer, or to transfer to be an army photographer. I'd went to that selection course. I'd got selected, but for a few personal reasons, I had to pull out last minute, and that kind of put me on the course to getting out the military actually at that point. But the reason why I went with Nikon is because the army were using Nikon.
They
still do.
Yeah, they still do. It's the army camera of choice, isn't it? It seems.
And I just thought, if I'm going to start building up this kit, then I want it to be the same stuff that the army will be using.
And of course, the glass is the bit, isn't it? I mean, you've got a 400mm. That's not a cheap lens, I would imagine.
No.
70-200 is never a cheap lens these days. I'm interested in the wide angle that you mentioned, because when I was looking at your website, I do notice there's some cracking pictures of managers, and I'm wondering if you shoot them from a distance, or whether you do sometimes switch into a more photojournalistic mode, close up, and you're getting in there and getting their reactions with a shorter focal length.
A lot of the managers' shots when in the dugout, I take the 400mm with me. I'm a 70-200, right. So I'll step back a bit, try to get a shot of the manager's shaking hand, and then I'm really up close and personal as I can get to the managers. So using my 400mm a lot of the time. Some people get in there with a wide angle lens and like get right underneath the manager. It's a bit invasive for me. I like to step back a bit.
Well, I was going to ask actually how the players and the managers and the staff see you as a photographer.
I don't tend to engage much with any of them. I like to step back and just shoot what's happening in front of me. So I don't set up any images or anything like that. Right. It's just whatever's happening in front of me, that's what I'm shooting. So I'll get myself into positions to give myself the best chance to get the right shot, or get the best shot I can. But I'm not really instructing players to do certain things. I wouldn't do that. I just step back, and whatever happens, happens.
What are the crowd like behind you?
Hit and miss. Depends on how the team's doing. When you're shooting for like a regular client, the fans start to recognise you.
Right.
So there's a couple of championship clubs that I shoot for regularly, and the fans are starting to recognise me. Always shooting their team, always in front of those fans and getting pictures of them before the game, during the game. So they start to like be a bit more friendly, and they'll come towards you and want like a big group picture and that kind of thing.
Isn't that funny? Oi, Martyn, can you get one for the family?
With the players, as I say, I just leave them to it. Right. Same with the managers, but again, like shooting teams regularly, I think the players and the management, because you're there on the touchline, they start to recognise you a bit as well.
So to get to know you,
there was like championship manager last year who started to recognise, but always being around the dugout area before the game and just start to pause for the pictures, like give me a bit of a smile and stuff. Nice shot.
Do you park your cameras behind the goals at all? I always wonder about those cameras that are parked behind goals. I see them flying on Match of the Day, you know, when a ball hits one square on.
I don't, however, I will be soon. I've got an extra body going spare, basically, and I just need to get the remote to put it behind the goal. But yeah, I've not done that yet, but hopefully it will be soon.
Now, you're a Carlisle United fan. I'm sure you photographed them a good few times. Mm-hmm. Are you able to sort of remain relatively neutral when you photograph them? Do you throw your hands in the air when they score, or kick a lens across the grass when they concede?
I've managed to contain my emotions. The first time I actually shot Carlisle, it was quite difficult. They were on the attack, and I found myself suddenly watching the game and not realising I should be taking pictures of this. But that was very early on. I do manage to control my emotions now, but I do love shooting Carlisle. It's actually, you shoot Premier League and England a few times and that kind of stuff, the big games. But for me, shooting Carlisle I absolutely love it, and I feel like I'm in such a privileged position, like in between the fans and the players, and capturing like the action and the emotion of the day of the fans and all that kind of stuff. I just absolutely love it. For many people, photographing sport and their favourite sport is is pipe dream territory, isn't it? And you've done it, and you're growing in the business. You're not full time yet with it, but you are earning from it. A difficult question, perhaps. Could you see going full time in this? I'm not so sure, because I love what I'm doing at the minute. I love the relationship I've got with sports photography. If it then becomes my full-time job, I wonder if that would then affect that in some way, whether there'd be more pressure on me. So I think how it is at the minute, I'm quite enjoying it. This sports photography is kind of like my release. Yeah. I say it's earning me a good bit of money on the side. I'm getting some great events. I'm really loving it at the minute. So I think at the minute, I'm happy where I am.
Your wife, Rebecca, now you're both in the media, you two. She works as a reporter. And we were talking about this particular chap the other day. Your wife said to you, only a couple of days ago, I'm off to go and see somebody called Captain Tom. Nice story. What a story that's turned out to be. This is the chap that's walking around his garden with a walker, isn't he?
Yeah.
What did he say he was going to do again?
So it was last Wednesday. My wife got sent out to Captain Tom to do like the initial story. It was like a local story. It was just something that was nice, good news story in amongst all, the rubbish which is happening at the minute. So she went along, met Captain Tom, spoke to him like, what are you wanting to achieve from this? He went, I just want to do all I can for the NHS. We're looking to raise £1,000.
And he's how old again? He's
100 on I think it's the 30th of April. 100. Okay. So he's doing 100 laps of his garden for his 100th birthday. I think today he's just achieved his 100th, actually. But yeah, in the space of 1 week, he's gone from looking to raise £1,000 to, I think it's currently just over 12 million.
That's telethon money, isn't it? If Captain
crazy.
Tom was hosting Children in Need, they'd be proud of that figure.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially in the last 2 days, it's gone from 1 million to just over 12. But
that's amazing.
He's doing an amazing job.
I can only see that growing.
Absolutely.
Tom, get out there, do another 100 laps.
But hopefully he'll get some kind of recognition at the end of all this.
I think he already has.
It's probably the worst thing that we've all been through in our lifetime.
Absolutely.
And this is like the best good news story that's come out of it, and is inspiring so many people. It's
become a world story. Captain Tom is like a world phenomena. But that says everything about humanity when it pulls together, doesn't it? And decide to work together rather than, operate separately. As we've also seen, which is a shame. But Captain Tom is bringing it home, I think. Martyn, pleasure to talk to you. I bet you can't wait to get out there again for the football clubs to open their doors.
Yeah.
I don't suppose you have any inside knowledge of when that might be.
I don't think anyone in the world knows when that will be. But yeah, good to go whenever it is.
Yeah.
Might be back in time, some nice weather as well.
Well, thanks to Martyn Haworth, and thanks to his wife Rebecca for helping to bring that story of Captain Tom to the fore. Every day we've mentioned Captain Tom. Within hours, the total changes, and it probably has since talking to Martyn a couple of days ago. So as of recording these words at 7:57 a.m. UK time, we've gone past the 20 million mark. Say we, loosely. Captain Tom has gone past the 20 million mark. I love that piece to camera by Prince William where he described Captain Tom as a one-man fundraising machine. So anyway, we're 12 days from Captain Tom's 100th birthday, and it looks like a modest squadron of socially distanced RAF Spitfires will be providing him with a fly past on the big day. It's what it looks like, and let's fingers crossed that will happen. Anyway, back with Kev tomorrow.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.